My mother walks into my doorless room, her eyes watery, cheeks red. Iyi, tengo malas noticias. I have bad news. Perdimos todo. Everything we owned, our memories, photos of me as a baby, passports, birth certificates, the engagement ring she had pawned to pay for rent, all gone. She couldn't hide it anymore. That facade she put on for years, that everything is going to be okay story, just didn't seem to hold up. She broke down, tears streaming down her face, and I responded with rather emotional indifference. I was numb. I was tired. Tired of packing up my belongings in black trash bags and moving from place to place every other week, sometimes with nowhere to go. Tired of what I once considered excuses from my parents. We don't have work papers, they'd say. I couldn't comprehend. How is it that my family can have access to something as basic as stable employment, income, and ability to hold a place to live? At the time, I hadn't internalized our circumstances. I knew that we struggled a bit financially, but so did everyone else in our apartment neighborhood. To me, they weren't about being immigrants. They just were. I rarely ever felt different. My upbringings were similar to those of peers around me. I've gone to school in Maryland since the 3rd grade. During recess, me and my friends would run around, play tag, foursquare, and took advantage of when teachers were not looking to explore the woods behind our schools. I got in trouble a couple of times. After school, I proudly wore my AAA neon green school patrol belt and assisted students at the crosswalk. Then, I walked home with my little sister to an afternoon snack tenderly prepared by Mama. I joined my friends at the playground until Dad came home from work. My family fit the nuclear structure, difference being that Mother worked night shifts. So I never felt different from my friends. I watched Saturday morning cartoons, pledged allegiance to the flag with my right hand over my heart, and watched more TV. My favorite show at the time was The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody. The original one, not the one where they're on the boat, but the hotel one, yeah, with one of my favorite immigrants of all time, Esteban Julio Ricardo Montoya de la Rosa Ramirez. It's a classic, it's a classic. The only difference between me and my peers is that I was born in a different part of the world. Besides that, not much else. Yet, there are 2 distinct times when I have actually felt out of place. When I first moved to the United States and had to learn a new culture and watch TV in a totally different language. And now, I am an undocumented immigrant. And the current political climate and discussion around the issue has made me question and reflect upon this conflicting aspect of my identity. I feel American, but I'm being told otherwise. It's made me question a few things about myself, about society, about the world, and in this reflection, I've come to realize that my feeling unwanted, my feeling different, is not due to some inherent difference within me. It is because collectively, we, as a society, discuss issues like immigration without acknowledging the in-between. Life is one big gray area, but we decide to treat it like it's black or white. You're either this or that. An action is either right or wrong. You're from here or from there. You're this or that race, us or them. These ultimatums are ever so present in the institutions that govern our behaviors. In my opinion, this way of thinking is problematic. It's what leads to conflicts between groups and fuels some of the most pressing contemporary issues of our time. There's a piece we're missing here when we talk about issues like this and look at the world this way: context and our humanity. Let me tell you a little secret about the immigrant community. They didn't want this. To leave their friends, families, loved ones, their entire lives behind, to move to a completely foreign land where they can't even communicate in their own language, it's ludicrous. Immigration exists in a couple of different forms, but the kind of immigration that I'm talking about here is forced immigration. People who have experienced oppression and hardships that caused them to leave their home countries. Oftentimes, we talk about the issue of forced immigration like there's some kind of agency involved. The truth is, displaced individuals did not have a choice. I was born in San Miguel, El Salvador. And for over a decade, the smallest country in Central America experienced an extensive civil war. Over 75,000 people were murdered, many of them innocent civilians. Children as young as 7 years old were recruited to fight. Women were raped and killed. The country was torn, and it has remained torn since. My parents moved to this country seeking to escape the economic turmoil and gang violence that plagues the nation to this very day. They, like most other civilians, didn't have a choice in the war. They didn't have a say. They didn't ask for revolution. They didn't want to fight. Yet, their lives were endangered and disrupted nonetheless. El Salvador, since the end of the Civil War, has remained one of the most violent societies in this part of the hemisphere. Poverty, violence, political turmoil, these are all factors that disrupt people's lives into chaos, forcing them to leave their home countries. It's present all over the world, in countries that for centuries have been less fortunate, that for centuries have been stepped on. Countries like Libya, Togo, Afghanistan, Honduras, Pakistan, just to name a few. It's even present in the very conception of America. The United States government, the same government which gracefully labels me an illegal alien, aligned itself with El Salvador's right-wing government during the Civil War. For over 11 years, they provided them with funds, weapons, political support, all in the name of fighting communism. U.S. military troops slaughtered and raped women, nuns, children. The Civil War displaced the majority of the Salvadoran population, and it has remained the most unstable country since then. Poverty, violence, these are my context. This is why I'm here. But I wasn't supposed to be here, though. I didn't plan on taking the SATs or applying for colleges. I was going to join my dad, bending my back every day, carrying wooden planks up flights of stairs, performing balancing acts on steel beams to place on roofs, all while he either burns his skin in the steaming sun or in temperatures so cold he has to place his limbs in warm water before he can feel them again. Each day, Dad comes home from his job covered in dirt that had stuck to his skin from the melting sweat of hard work. That was going to be my future. But that changed in 2012. That summer, my family and I had taken residence in an attic up in Riverdale, Maryland. In June, I watched President Obama announce his Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals plan. This program provides work authorizations and a social security number to individuals who were brought to this country as children, individuals like me. I left San Miguel when I was 9 years old, and before DACA, I had zero plans on attending school. After quickly collecting the $500 application fee, I jumped over to college applications without any idea of what they even consisted of, where to find them, or what schools I even wanted to apply to. After getting accepted to a few universities, I was still unable to afford them. Fortunately, I was accepted to my community college's honors business program, which gave me a full scholarship, and that turned out to be life-changing. I went to Montgomery College knowing it was the only option I had and that I almost had none. So I quickly got involved. At the time, I didn't even plan on transferring. I was just happy to go to school. I established a political advocacy group, helped manage social entrepreneurship projects, was a student senator for the student government, and then was even appointed to serve on the school's board of trustees by Governor Hogan. The early 5 a.m. mornings, 2-hour bus rides to school and back, coming back home at 10 p.m. were all worth it when it came time to transfer. I got into Georgetown, and I received a prestigious transfer scholarship, enabling me to be here on this very stage today. All of my sacrifices, all of my parents' sacrifices were validated. I'll never forget delivering the news to my parents. This time around, mother's tears were no longer of sorrow, but of pride. So I'm here. Here because my family sought a better life. but that life is now in jeopardy. DACA was rescinded in September, and its future, the future of all dreamers, my future, hangs in the balance. The same country which caused some of these structural issues that destabilized my country, the same government which caused this disruption, costing me to be here, rejects me. As I work to disrupt my family's cycle of poverty, it delegitimizes my struggles, my pursuit of happiness, my attempt at being a contributing member of American society, failing to acknowledge how the majority of the immigrant population is here not because they chose to be, but because they were forced. Poverty, violence, political turmoil, these are all factors that caused them to be here. They come here having nowhere else to go, only to be labeled rapists, murderers, criminals, and be rejected. Illegal, alien. These words, they paint me black and white. Like all I am is a foreigner. But there's context to my story. Like there's context behind every other story. A reason for my being here that these words do not capture. They dehumanize me and those with similar struggles. By the way, can somebody explain the word alien to me? Because I've never been able to understand that one. I can maybe understand illegal, but who in their right mind decided that alien was an appropriate term to call another human being? Like, do I look like E.T. or something? I don't get it. The law, on the other hand, the law is important. The law, creating and enforcing them, allows society to keep order and thus advance as a civilization. The problem with the law is, though, that it creates these ultimatums, black or white, legal or illegal, right or wrong. But the two don't always go together. People oftentimes use legality as a benchmark for morality. The problem is the laws aren't fixed. They're changed and created all the time. New ones are amended, others created. They are man-made. Not some heavenly ordained order for morality. They are created by those we elect to government. And in theory, this practice makes sense, right? Those who we elect should be representative of our communities and thus enact laws that take everyone's concerns into account, right? But when the majority of Congress is white and male, representation kind of goes out the window. Laws can thus become disconnected from the concerns of the many and voice those of the few. But it's not all bad. This can actually sometimes lead to some pretty entertaining laws. Seriously, if you just Google like crazy laws, you'll find a bunch of them. So here's a few examples. In Gainesville, Georgia, it's illegal to eat fried chicken if you're not using your hands. It makes sense, of course. In Connecticut, a pickle can't legally be considered a pickle unless it bounces when you drop it. If only it was that easy to be considered legal. Seriously, somebody introduce that to Congress, please. For some time now, I have been hearing some pretty hateful comments about dreamers like myself and the immigrant community as a whole. And as much as they bother me, as much as they hurt, I look for the gray areas. To those who perpetrate and think those comments, I acknowledge that there's also context to you. I don't believe you inherently hate me. Those words, they are a byproduct of your own struggles, of your own frustrations. You too have faced structural issues that leave you disenfranchised. My fellow Americans, I feel you. We've both been failed by a broken system. So when you label me illegal, when you claim that I need to go back, I remember that you too face your own struggles. Poverty, violence, unemployment, these too are your gray areas, your context. That much we have in common. And we have more in common than you might think. Whether you like it or not, my sense of nationality is the same as yours. I love this country. It may sound like I'm criticizing it, and I am, because I care about it and its future. I was raised here. I've been here since I was 9. I've been educated here. I dress American. I speak English better than I speak Spanish. I pledge allegiance to the red, white, and blue. This is my home. America was founded on values that I hold dear, values that my parents have embodied since coming here, values that the immigrant community embodies every day in searching for a better life. Hard work, perseverance, the pursuit of happiness, the American dream. But the attachment that we feel to a particular national identity can be polarizing. It's at the center of creating other isms and this divide between us or them. This might sound a bit meta, but stay with me for a second. The only reason why the concept of an immigrant or immigration exists in the first place is because we place emphasis on this concept of a country. But what is a country? What is a state? What is a nation? I told you, we're getting meta, but just stay with me for a second. One day, humans decided to place imaginary lines on land that is somehow entitled to some entity. Anyone who is not born within these imaginary lines, well, they don't belong here. They are not one of us. They are different. Those who happen to be born within these imaginary lines, well, they are considered a member of this nation. U.S. citizenship is based on the arbitrary factor of birth, something no one can control. Yet, the imaginary lines you are born within determines your identity, nationality, socioeconomic status, your language. Lines, like laws, are not fixed. They have shifted and continue to change throughout time. Nations, too, are a social construct. But our humanity is not. In my comparative political systems course, we read Benedict Anderson. Professor Carnes, I know you're in the audience somewhere, so I hope to get some extra credit for this. Seriously, I need it. In his work, Anderson defines nations as imagined communities. They arise from this feeling of belonging to a particular group. But we don't actually ever meet everyone inside that group. We just imagine ourselves as a part of it, due in large part to the spread of ideas from the media. So group identities are thus in our heads. So if nations are imagined, we need to put aside our sense of nationalism when human lives are at stake. We are all part of the same race, living on the same rock. Yes, this system we have created of nations existing independently has enabled a functioning world, progress in civilization, but progress unevenly distributed, progress at the expense of the majority. Yet, despite this divide, despite the rhetoric, despite the hate, despite the fear that I experience every day, I'm still American. If the United States government decided that deporting DACA students is in its best benefit, I could be back in El Salvador, and I'll still be American. My parents, like myself, are also dreamers. And much like how they seek for opportunities in the face of none, I look for the good in the face of negativity, for the gray areas amidst the black and the white. That's the lesson I take away from the immigrant community. I remain optimistic. They, and their fighting spirit, embodies the very best in mankind. The ability to look adversity in the eye, and when nothing is going right, continue to forge ahead. In the face of oppression, they fight, they hope, they keep moving forward. Being undocumented is supposed to disenfranchise me, and in many ways, it does. Yet, I don't feel disenfranchised. I feel empowered. These very same adversities have made me who I am today. They've opened up my eyes to take little for granted and to see all the colors that the world has to offer. In my personal journey, I have been fortunate enough to be rewarded for my actions, for my work. But none of that would have been possible without the players in the background, without my parents. They honestly would have likely been better off staying in El Salvador. And there's times when they express regret, of leaving it all behind. Times when they can't be there for the funeral of their own parents, brothers, sisters. But they know that I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing if it wasn't for them. So they continue to sacrifice, breaking their backs every day for me. So I have to let them know. Mamá, papá, ustedes son la razón por la cual yo estoy aquí hoy. Si no fuera por sus sacrificios y por todo lo que ustedes han hecho por mí, yo no estuviera aquí. No hay palabras para decirle cómo estoy de agradecido. Los amo con todo mi corazón. Gracias. Some may judge their actions and label them criminals, forgetting their reason for being here, their context, their gray area, me. I call them my heroes. I stand on the shoulders of my parents. I stand tall and I stand proud, proud to be an immigrant, proud to be the son of immigrants, now more than ever before. I still have faith that we, as a society, can see all the similarities that we have in common, looking past these imagined differences and acknowledging the humanity that we all share. I urge you, disrupt this black and white thinking, and instead, look for the gray areas. And when we do, we can create a world full of colors. Thank you.